Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. We are inside International Coaching Week. It's from the 16th to the 22nd of May, and we're going to be speaking to the importance of professional coaching with Dr. Hyacinth Guy, who is the Principal Director of Hyacinth Guy Human Resource Company and provides coaching, leadership, and organizational development services to organizations and individuals. She is representing the Human Resource Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, Dr. Guy. How are you doing?
Fine. Thank you, DK. Thank you for inviting Hermat to do this. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Hermat.
And thank you so much for making the time. I want to ask you, though, what is the most important aspect of what you do as it relates to professional coaching?
Okay. As you read a little bit before, my coaching services they focus on organizational and people development. Now, in the introduction, you said mediation. I'm trained in mediation. I am, but the title, the word there is really meditation. So I am trained in coaching in general, life success coaching, executive coaching, mediation, wellness coaching from the Chopra Center, and I do sessions on meditation, mindfulness, and so on as part of the coaching offerings that I give. So I'm really looking to get individuals and organizations to perform at their highest potential. Yes, so that's the work that I do with them.
And with that in mind, though, thank you for that. What are some of those differences you see in an individual and an organization before and after coaching?
The key thing, DK, is the self-awareness. Self-awareness is hard to identify in an organization, but you can see the culture. The culture changes. The beliefs, the way we do things, the belief that we can do something, the conversations change, the language changes when you see an organization changes. It's slow, but you can see if you're going in the right direction. For an individual, the self-awareness increases. You will start off with an individual that is full of doubt, lacking in confidence, not sure, kind of stuck in a comfort zone. This is me. This is how I do things. Why should I change? And then, after a number of sessions with, the right questioning, causing the person to self-reflect, to look at different options, then you will start to see, okay, this makes sense. I went and I tried this, and okay, this was my experience. Okay, I'll try it again. And you see, it's like an opening up of a new world for them. Yeah. And, for the most part, you get that increase in potential and in performance when somebody becomes aware of who they are and what they have to give this world. Yeah.
And I like the fact that you speak about narrative, words, words leading to habits, it not being something that is instantaneous, but at the same time, there's a level of consistency that is involved. But let's jump to the beginning, thank you, and ask about the origins of coaching. Or should I ask about the origins of coaching from those trees that you grab your inspiration from?
No, we could talk about the origins of coaching in a general sense, yes? Because yes, those trees that I grab my inspiration from would have come out of that. But, coaching is relatively new. So if you look at the literature, you would see coaching articles, coaching dissertations, and so on, probably from the 90s, 80s, 90s upwards. The literature, and I've reviewed the literature, you see, perhaps between the 40s to the 90s, very little writing and research on it. And then in the 80s and 90s, you saw a proliferation of it. And, whether one informed the other or coaching informed it, we're not sure, but it was coincident with the development of the or the explosion of the personal development industry. And, the organizations recognizing that you need to develop people and use the skills and competencies of people in order for the organization itself to benefit. So there was an explosion in the personal development industry. And if you think about how it's different from like counseling and therapy, if you look at the personal development industry, you will see those two strands. One is client focus and the other one is kind of, relationship focus. On the client focus, you would see development strand, where we are seeking to develop people, whether personally or professionally. And then there's the other strand where you we call it recovery, which is the counseling and therapy and so on. We are not on that side. We are on the development side, where we seek to help people bring out the best in themselves. So it's either business coaching or personal coaching. Business coaching, you can do executive coaching, professional coaching, career coaching, and then life coaching. You can do things like, how do I set goals? How do I manage anger? How do I get more patience? How do I understand how to work with my friends, my family? I respond in a particular way. It's not always, the best way. Help me to understand that in myself and show up differently. So that's the personal side. I do more of the business side, even though I'm trained in both.
What will lead a company to say, okay, well, we need to make this sort of investment? Because yeah. I can see someone saying, but if I train up these people like that, they're just going to go to the competition. So what are some of the things that lead someone to say, we need to put this in sort of investment into the people who are working with us?
Yeah. You can say, yes, if I train up these people, they will go to the competition. But Dike, what about if you don't train them and they stay and they're with you and they're not providing the kind of benefits that you want in an organization? So maybe some people will leave, but that is the luck of the draw. You have to have an organization culture and a culture of engagement such that people will want to stay with you. And so you have to take the chance and you have to train them. It's not even a chance, it's a necessity. So what will cause an organization to want to train people? Let's look at it from the executive perspective. You have executives there, and I've trained with executives, I've coached executives who are so very strong technically. You are good at, what you do, you present well, you articulate well, but perhaps there may be some other disruptive and ineffective behaviors, perhaps how you interact with your direct reports, perhaps how you don't delegate, you don't give clarity in your goals and so on. And, while for a very long time we held on to that person who had those technical skills and we bore with them, we are realizing now that undermines the success of our organization over time. It does. So we have to focus on those things. So you may have an executive or a manager who really is good at what they do, but that is not enough for the success of an organization. You have to build those other competencies. And organizations realize soon enough that, to build those competencies, yes, I can send you to training, but training doesn't do it all. You see that one-on-one coaching where somebody is comfortable, they have confidence in that person, they trust that person, they are willing to show up with a different behavior and repeat that behavior over time, which is how it takes root. Repetition is the key to learning and to change. Then that produces results. So that's one way one reason to change behaviors in leaders that are not conducive to organization success. Then there is the succession planning aspect of it, because you may want to develop a cadre of leaders. And again, those leaders, you may find that they have some competencies and some skills, but there are some gaps, which generally there are. And what have we done? We have always looked for the person who is, what we call bright, technically sound, and we have placed them in positions. And we say, okay, sink or swim. But no, we are taking those chances now, right? We're identifying what are the skills and competencies that you need to develop, whether it's teamwork, whether it is collaborating, whether it's engaging, connecting, whether it's delegating, again, setting goals and having performance conversations with people. A lot of managers can't do that. And a coach helps. So we take that cadre of next generation leaders and we put them through coaching and we help them identify where their gaps are, because everybody doesn't have the same gap. We identify that and we take them to the next level.
I'm listening to you on what you're saying, Dr. Guy, and I hear this passion in your voice. And let me fasten your business a little bit now. Was the reason you said you trained with both, but why the slant or the seeming preference dealing more with organizations as opposed to individuals?
Individuals, I can't really answer that. It's what comes to me and where I came from, right? Because you see the HR field, and that is why I got into it. I'm in HR for a very long time. And being in HR, I wanted to understand as I got to the executive level, and I had to implement plans and programs, negotiate, and deal with so many stakeholders across the organization. I wanted to understand, how do you reach people? How do you reach people? And it is not just, I can tell somebody what to do. Communication alone is not all. I could tell you, Dike, you need to do this because it is the right thing for you to do. But there's no reason there for you to do it. The reason that you would do it is if you connect with something deeper. And I wanted to understand that. And that's why I got into coaching from the HR perspective. So I've worked in organizations and I started with what we call facilitation, where you meet with individuals, you meet with groups, and you help to make them work together, work more effectively. And then I transitioned into coaching. So I learned the business coaching and I learned personal coaching, but more of the business coaching comes to me and I do more of it. Not to say that I can't do the personal, but I market more the business.
I like the fact that
you have a passion for organizations. I have a passion for seeing organizations function well, and I have a passion for seeing the HR department really integrated into what that organization is set up for, in a real integrated way. I have a passion for that.
It's one thing to bring that passion to the table and say, okay, well, I can see some definite low-hanging fruit and possibly we can work towards organizing some steps incrementally for you to get where you want to be, to maximize your full potential. But how much is too much, in the sense that after everything is said and done, the individuals, the organizations, they need to do the work. You can bring them to water, but you can't drink it for them. So how do you decide, okay, well, yes, this is where I need to kind of draw a line, or these are the parameters that I'm operating between?
Yeah. So, we work with individuals mostly. I work with individuals mostly. I work with teams from time to time. So the coaching that I find most effective is when a group of people in an organization, let's say an executive group or management group team, would have done a 360 degree assessment. A 360 degree assessment is where you have multiple raters rating you on certain specific competencies that the organization would have identified that is aligned with its values. So that 360 degree assessment goes out, the results come in. That is where I come in. I take those results and I look at it and I say, a number of raters saying that Dike doesn't collaborate well. His communication is rated a 2 out of 5. Why? So I would look at that, and then I would hold focus meetings, because you want to maintain anonymity because the 360 is anonymous. but you also want to get a little deeper into the minds of people. What do you mean when you say somebody doesn't communicate well, and they give you some information? And then I take that information together with the quantitative information from the 360, and I meet one-on-one with those individuals from that group. And you get such good nuggets of information coming from these executives. You get information on an individual basis, and then you get information as a team, how they gel together, if they gel at all, what stands in the way of this group gelling together. So you can more or less get information that can take the organization forward. And yes, there are times you can say, well, I've done everything that needs to be done, and perhaps there's something else that is standing in the way of this organization going further. But you know what? That one-on-one discussion, it always sticks with people. It sticks with people. And even though, at the end of your, 6-month coaching or whatever, you see, I'm hearing the same stories over and over, you know that certain nuggets would have stuck with individuals, particularly at a personal level, because change starts at a personal level. Yeah. And if you're not seeing it at an organization-wide level, in the time that you're with them, you know that there would have been some changes, some self-awareness. I focus a lot on the individual becoming aware of who he or she is and what their potential is, and getting that belief, hey, the organization signals are telling me I'm not good enough, but I'm coming to believe that I am. Once you come to believe who you are, to know who you are, then the world is open out there for you. So little by little, you would see change. Culture doesn't change overnight, and change at an individual level happens by you showing up differently, identifying the things that are not working for you in the way you show up. And when I say show up, how I interact with you, the characteristic I put out there when I interact with you, that isn't working. Let me show up differently. And then you repeat that, and you repeat it. Repetition is the key to change, because there's a whole neuroscience behind that. And as part of the coaching training that I have too, that you understand, that change comes not just from the will to change, but you have to give it time, because there is a physical change that has to happen in the brain too. There's neural patterns have to be built in order for they to be cemented, and for you to feel comfortable with that new behavior. Yeah.
How do you reconcile that time against someone who is looking for results now? Because we're in a space where people expect a lot of things to happen instantaneously, as opposed to saying, okay, well, there is an exchange of behaviors or cultures or practices, versus saying, okay, well, this is something that needs to be built.
Yes.
Do you think that someone may say, okay, well, but this is a snake oil salesman? How do you treat with that?
Yes. So again, working with the individual and working with the team. And if you're working with a team, important to work closely with the CEO of that team. Very, very important. Because that person is going to really establish for the rest of the team as to whether this is something we have all bought into. He or she can't send ambiguous signals at all. So I encourage clients that I work with, and I let them know that this is going to take time. And I reference changing the language, changing the words, changing the conversations in organization. So I say, let us reframe how we are progressing, right? We started off with something, we wanted to achieve something. We're not 100% there, but here what, we didn't fail. Let's change the language to say we were 40% successful. Next time we'll be 60% successful, and then 80%, and then we'll get there. So never say we fail, always say we are successful. You change the language and make it more positive. So you keep moving forward. because you need
Even
that.
looking at the language that you would have your performance indicators with, that is something that
Yes.
didn't occur to me. But and I like the fact that you talk about triangulating research. So yes, there's quantitative,
Yes,
but
definitely.
you're also mindful of the fact that five people may do the same thing, but for vastly different reasons. So
Reasons,
being
yes.
able to get that, to get the qualitative aspect along with that quantitative aspect,
Quantitative.
which would lead towards a more impactful sort of policy shift. But with
Yeah.
regard to research, though, what does research? You spoke about a plethora of research
Yes.
coming up, and
Yes.
you put the timestamp on it. What is that research saying, though, about coaching in organizations?
Yes. Okay, the last research I read was a 2019 research done by the International Coach Federation, and they commissioned a study to look at coaching in organizations and whether there was a positive relationship between the coaching and organization outcomes. And the study did show that there was a positive relationship, 29 research study. One of the things that you would, so organizations can hold on to that. And if you speak to individual coaches, you would get that kind of information. You get mostly, there has been a positive impact. Of course, you would get, situations where there would not be a positive impact, but that is normal. One of the things you would find when you get into coaching and you read your research on coaching is that it is a growing discipline. It is a growing discipline. And the research tells you that there needs to be more research. There needs to be research into, what is the return on this? What is the return on investment, and what is the return on expectation? So, unlike, the medical field, the counseling field, and the therapy field, where you have so much years of research and data, you can do systematic studies and you can look at themes. Coaching is still growing in that regard. And the literature would tell you that there still needs to be so much more research to be done. One of the issues that it is facing today is that the barriers to entry are low. So you can do a coaching program, you can do 100 hours of practice, and you can enter the field. So it probably needs more to rise to the level of what we consider to be a profession, because there are some aspects, there are some criteria for something to be a profession. So it's called a profession loosely, but I think according to how a profession is defined, it doesn't meet quite all the criteria as yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there. And the International Coaching Federation has taken it really, really far. It has credentials, it has training. But I think what it is lacking is that body of research, a significant enough body of research.
Looking at the fact that HERMAT has a range of activities from the 16th to the 22nd, so you can go to the platforms that HERMAT is putting out information on and avail yourself of the information. But in closing remarks, Dr. Guy, I want to ask, what do you think, because you hinted towards it in terms of the future of coaching, but I ask you for that specifically, as well as any closing comments, anything that I didn't ask you that you want to touch on. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on organizations today would be asking themselves, why should I invest in a coach for an executive or a manager, even employees? But they must understand that the skills and competencies that got somebody into their position today would not be the same skills and competencies that can allow for success or can take you further. And we don't want to leave those things to chance. The competitive environment is too, it's too risky. You can't leave that to chance. So you have to be very proactive when you are looking at the people resources you have in the organization and aligning those resources with the needs of the organization. You have to identify what it is that this person has in terms of skills and competencies that person can bring to this job. It's no longer we can take a chance and say, okay, let us just put this person because this person knows how the technology in building cars or, building electric cars or whatever. No, there is other behavioral competencies. And for too long, we have not focused on that. And organizations need to focus on that in order to thrive and survive in this competitive environment. Because the person who is doing it is going to get ahead of you, right? Because they may not have to contain with those disruptive behaviors or behaviors that undermine productivity in organizations and so on, or create toxic cultures. Yeah. So it is important for organizations to identify how are you linking the resources that you have in the organization and developing them to suit the outcome that you need in the organization. And just in closing, I want to commend Hermat for this initiative and for taking this forward. People can go on Hermat's website and they can see what is the list of activities to celebrate Coaching Week. You can also go to the International Coaching Federation website and see the list of activities for this week, and that's on an international basis. Yes, and again, thank you so very much for having me.
Our pleasure, Dr. Guy, Dr. Hyacinth. Guy, talking to us about professional coaching and making us think about some things that may not have been on the forefront of the things that we think about when we think about coaching. And on behalf of the entire TGT News team, I want to thank you for also tuning into In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you for joining us.